Today I feel prompted to have a discussion with the church. And when I talk about the church, I'm actually talking about individual church leaders in our country. But I also talk about the church denominations and also the church in general. That means regardless of denominational affiliation. And I thought that it is important for us to have this discussion, especially because Zambia has been known for years as being a peaceful nation. There are foundational principles that have made Zambia remain a country called peaceful. And the moment we move away from those fundamental principles that have given us the peace that we have enjoyed over the past almost 60 years, we will and we can lose the peace and all the attendant blessings of peace. It is for this reason that I would like to prick the conscience of the body of Christ, that whenever there is a challenge in a country, it should not be the politicians, it should not be civic leaders only, it should not just be analysts on television that are going to push for peace and resolution of the conflicts that are facing the nation. The first group that must be heard in the country when there is a problem is the church. I am concerned at the silence of the church, especially when we start to hear the drums of discontent in the country. We hear the drums of conflict. We start to see the red flags that could lead us to a conflicted society. And the church, sometimes we wait for things to get bad, then we try to jump in and to try to become the ones that solve the problem. That usually is a bit too late. Political, religious, and ethnic conflicts are known to destroy great world empires. Politics, religion, and ethnicity, or in our case, it could be called tribal. The nations that know peace are those who have mastered the management of these three vices. Politics, meaning you don't belong to my party, you belong to the other party, and therefore, although we are both Zambians, I hate you because you don't belong to my party, and I'm ready to kill you in order for me to gain political advantage over you. Political conflict. The second one, of course, is religious conflict, which by God's grace, we don't experience that in our country as much. That we are not really divided, although we have so many denominations. But religious conflicts are not our problem in Zambia. And we thank God for that. And we should continue to stand in faith that that does not come to our country. Ethnic conflicts in Zambia, tribal challenges. Yes, the drums of war in this regard continue to be beat through the years. But we have managed to navigate through these tribal sentiments and conflicts. They have not really resulted into anything that we should be scared of. But it doesn't mean that we should be careless in managing this one aspect. So the nations that know peace, they know how to manage these three issues. Rwanda lost almost 1 million of its citizens because of ethnic conflicts. In a few weeks, Israel and Gaza would have lost a combined 13,000 lives as a result of a combination of political and religious differences. We are not better than any one of these people. We cannot say that poor Rwandese, poor Gazites. This can happen to any people group if, as leaders, we fail to manage these aspects that can either frustrate our peace or we can use them as instruments to unite ourselves. So Zambia must watch for early warnings, and we must act to forestall these warnings. Today I'm speaking to the church because of my confidence and faith. The church could become the only reasoning power in between that can moderate the high emotions that are rising up in our country politically. This is not about who is right and who is wrong. When emotions kick in, reasonableness disappears. And the moment emotion kicks in and becomes the one that carries the hate, the law is the greatest casualty. People don't care anymore about what the law says. And any country that turns its back against the law is headed towards chaos. I don't care how injured you are, but let's all deal with our pain and our concerns within the framework of the law. It is for these differences and these moments that the law was created, to manage the emotions of a human being when he's angry, to recognize we live in a community. I'm angry today, my neighbor could be angry tomorrow. And if we don't regulate ourselves within the confines of the law, we can destroy ourselves as a people. I appeal to the Zambian church to rise up to the occasion. Today, Zambia is threatened by a heated political environment. An intra-party fight within the Patriotic Front, and the traditional confrontation between the ruling party and the opposition parties. We have had this since the multi-party democracy came into place. But what we are seeing now is departing from the norms of what democracy was meant to achieve. Democracy was meant to give an opportunity to every citizen of our land to have free access to media, to express yourself, and affiliate with any organization or group that you so choose. Above that, it also affords you an opportunity to go to a voting booth and vote for a leader of your choice without intimidation or obstruction from any other. That was the original intention of democracy. Democracy was never intended to be used as a weapon to destroy one another, as a weapon to mistreat one another, or as a way of taking advantage of your fellow citizen. That's not the intention of democracy. So, what is most serious is not the growing conflicts, but the absence and the silence of the church. And that's why I'm coming to you. For some reason, the church has fully separated itself from political clashes, maybe thinking that they are not the ones who have created the crisis, it's these politicians. But the reason we exist as the church is to continue to be the salt of the earth, always present in any concoction, to make sure that we are right inside these issues that are prevailing in our country, in order for us to moderate the attitude in the country, the mood in the country, and also to ensure that we push for peace. So there is this issue of the church watching these political clashes, hoping that someone else will attend to the growing culture of hate. The politicians will not do it. Some of the politicians are experts on using hate to advance their political careers, on using violence to advance their political careers, in using deceit to advance their political careers. So they are not going to do the right thing, because those things that I've mentioned are not godly values. Those are values that destroy nations. And it takes the church to come in the middle and demand that reasonableness comes back and equity comes into the country. My understanding is that the church and the church leaders are supposed to be in the forefront in bringing politicians to order. But for this to happen, the church leaders must acquire their respect from the political players through their objectivity. What am I talking about? I think that when you look across the African continent, there are only a few Christian names or leaders that are eulogized across the continent and across the world. And, the late Desmond Tutu is a name. When you mention it, political leaders are saying, yes, please bring him here to help us resolve this issue. You're going to mention several names on this continent of leaders in the church that have built for themselves that character of respect and dependability that in times of a crisis people look to them. Maybe Zambia needs to work harder. The Zambian church needs to work harder to create such kind of leadership in the church that their authority can be felt and sought after to be able to mitigate when there's a problem in the country. In a Christian nation like Zambia, the absence of clear voices calming the waters is more worrying than the conflicts themselves. The fact that we have been experiencing these, outbursts of political fights, both in parliament and outside parliament, and high emotions and statements that are, suggesting that, nobody cares what's going to happen if my situation is not looked at and if it's not resolved my way. I think this thing will continue as long as the church continues to shy away. So I've come to speak to the church today. The respect to mediate does not come cheaply for the church. For a church leader to be considered to mediate, that church leader must have personal gravitas in terms of respect, weight, where people can respect him. He must have moral weight and respect. A church leader of resolve and morality is needed to help resolve problems politicians cannot resolve on their own. I felt that I needed to come to the church. Regardless of where we are, we have a challenge in this country. And the high emotions of politicians will not slow down. And if the church wants to intervene and propose peace and a path of unity, the church needs to do it now, not when everything gets out of control. We are not yet at a terrible point, but if nothing happens, there are those who feel they have nothing to lose, even if they set this country on fire. It is important for the church to read between the lines, to see beyond the clouds that there is danger ahead of us, and step in to declare that peace is not cheap to acquire, but the church exists precisely to bring peace in a troubled world. I call on my colleagues in the church. This responsibility is your responsibility to talk to all of us in the political scenario and bring peace. I thank you, and may God bless our great nation.